So thank you for coming. We're not very many today. It's a small crowd, but the topic is even more interesting. And we're having a stream, so people can watch this talk later on YouTube, listen to it on Spotify, listen to it on the website of the Kreisky Forum, listen to it on my website. So we will have an audience in the end. And we're happy with you being here and being our audience tonight. Thank you for coming, despite this terrible weather. What we're talking about today is how Romanians and Moldovans are reclaiming politics and democracy, which is under threat and under danger in both countries and has been for a while. I invited Alina Radu from Moldova, from Chișinău, and Elena Calistru from Bucharest, from Romania, not because everything's the same, but some problems were similar. And though both countries have a lot of similarities, both speak Romanian. Parts of the Moldovan population speak Romanian as well. Part of Moldova, or Moldova was part of Romania in the Middle Ages. Lately, during the Cold War, Moldova was a Soviet republic. Romania was part of the Warsaw Pact, but not a Soviet republic. Anyways, obviously, as we know, socialist countries. And there's a lot of talk about reunification, although I think that's not very realistic, but people are talking. It's like a current, it's like an undercurrent in the debate. We're probably going to talk about that later. And both countries do have a huge and dangerous neighbor, which is Russia, and are subject to Russian disinformation, propaganda, and attempts of destabilization. The difference, Romania is part of EU and NATO, whereas Moldovans are still dreaming of that. So what I want to do today is, after I introduce both of my wonderful guests, is I don't want to make an attempt to compare everything. I'm going to be impolite, talk in a short block with Alina and in a short block with Elena, and then try to bring things together and find out where we find common traits in the problems. So Elena Calistru, is the founder and president of the NGO Funky Cizitens, which, as I just learned, has even been mentioned by Elon Musk. So it's not in a positive way. And it's one of the leading NGOs in Romania, one can say. She also represents the fact-checking platform Factual.ro, if I say that right. I don't speak Romanian. You focus on the engagement of citizens in the public sphere, on the control of public finances and the fight against disinformation and corruption. Your work started with the idea to decode public budgets and make them understandable to the public, and teaching citizens to fight disinformation in their own sphere and fight bureaucracy and apathy. She is also a member of the European Economic and Social Committee, the voice of organized civil society in Europe, in Brussels, where you're flying tomorrow, where you're spending half of your work time. And you're the president of ECO, the section of Economic and Monetary Union and Economic and Social Cohesion. Sounds very impressive. So, you work in Brussels, let's put it that way. Alina Radu, we've met before twice, I think, is one of the most famous investigative journalists and CEO of, I'm saying that wrong probably too, Ziarul de Gardă. My Romanian is perfect. The largest investigative and reporting outlet and newspaper in Moldova. Ziarul de Gardă is a newspaper and a website, and is published in Romanian and Russian. And you have a YouTube channel and are active on multiple social media platforms, right? You're the most subscribed newspaper in the small country, which doesn't mean very much. How high is your tirage?
Well, if we look at the circulation and number of population, will be newspaper number 2 in Austria, and we are newspaper number 1 in Romania too. Okay. We have like 15 to 20,000 copies, which is a lot for a small population.
Exactly. And you're upholding human rights and promoting integrity through your reporting. You are under massive threat, both of you. We're going to talk about that too. You're also a media expert and a trainer, specializing in journalism and human rights. And despite enormous resistance and personal attacks, both of you have long been committed to democratic oversight and independent media landscape and debunking disinformation, which has not gotten easier, I assume. You don't want to leave your country to oligarchs and mafiosi, but rather strengthen democratic forces in a still fragile post-Sovietic societies. So, Elena, I'm going to start with you with Romania, because I think most people here don't, besides Elon Musk, don't really know what Funky Cizitens is and do, and it's much more important than we imagine, I assume. What's your work like?
Well, I often say that we're professional troublemakers for the government. And I take it as a good indicator if we manage to upset people from all political parties. This is an impact indicator for us, because especially when it comes to holding politicians accountable, you want to be neutral somehow, or to keep to the same standards all politicians. We work a lot with translating what is happening in the public space for a general population, usually younger people. We do a lot of work online, and we use the social media and the digital channels quite a lot in mobilizing people, but we also are very active offline. For example, because we had a lot of elections last year and this year, we do civic caravans, for example, in which we do debates. We have independent observers that volunteer to see how the elections are going on. And we also do a lot of analysis and research, oftentimes on issues like budgets, corruption in general, judicial reform. And we do this while also attending protests or calling out for, sometimes also for protests. So what we're trying to do is to equip citizens with the instruments that they need in order to understand some of the changes in the political sphere, and then tell them how they can change the things that they don't like.
How many people work for you? How many volunteers do you have? How big is the organization?
Well, it depends on the time. My team right now is around 50 people. We have offices in Bucharest and in Cluj. 50 people that comprise Funky Cizitens, the NGO per se, but we also have 2 newsrooms. So we have the fact-checking platform, and then we have a Bucharest-based journalism platform, which is called Buletin de București. So basically, all people together are around 50. Then we have volunteers, especially if we are during elections. Last year we had around 2,000 people at the same time. It's quite a lot to manage, but usually it's less than that.
And how, I mean, your budget is partially financed from outside, I think. I looked on your website and I saw that the Americans, for example, used to pay part of the budget. Is that still the case?
I cannot comment on this. No, I'm kidding. No, we were among the lucky ones that didn't rely too much on US funding. Okay. Mostly because since we joined the EU, the American funding for our country has withdrawn anyways. So basically we did have some grants, but usually regional grants together with the colleagues, for example, from Poland or from Hungary, but it was less than 10% of our budget.
I see, okay.
So that's quite good. But it's usually competitive grants that we apply for example, from the European Commission, but it's also private foundations. We do have a lot of donations, sponsorship as well, and the colleagues that have the media platforms are actually generating also economic revenue.
One last question, and then I want to change to Alina. I read on your website as well that you want to train the vulnerable part of the society. What do you think those are? People who are not trained in media literacy, or who is that?
Yes, but oftentimes we are thinking that the young people need to be trained and educated and so on and so forth. Actually, for a country like Romania, the older generations are more vulnerable to disinformation online, for example, because they are encountering this kind of digital threats for the very first time. They're not born in a digital world, and they tend to believe whatever is on a blue screen. It's somehow normal. It's a generational trait. So we're trying to also reach out to them, not directly, but rather by, trying to explain to those that are around us, usually younger people, they have to have the patience and the kindness to talk to their parents, to talk to their grandparents, to actually look what their feed looks like on the mobile phone,
So
and to try to have a conversation.
Intergenerational
Of
teaching.
course,
Okay.
always.
Okay.
Always.
Okay. Alina, you work in a different sphere and yet in the same sphere because you work for a very famous newspaper which has gotten lots of awards in a landscape which is more and more dependent on social media. So how do you counter that?
We come to that naturally because if we look at the circulation of newspapers, actually everywhere it's going down, but our circulation is maintaining and slightly increasing, which means we have an audience for the newspaper, for the print version, we have an audience for the web, and we have other audience segments for social media. They are different, and this is the challenge to talk in the language that everybody understands, and it is not easy when you have a small team and you are devoted to investigative reporting to turn this investigative piece into something interesting for elderly, but also for the young who do not read long pieces, they read or they watch short things. But however, we see an increase of public attention to investigative reporting, and
That's what would be my next question. I know that people really trust you. I mean, that's rare in a society like Moldova, where people are not very trustful. How do you do that?
well, it means we are 21
What, years old?
years old,
Okay.
which is a nice age. But we are there for 21 years, and we had published an investigative piece or 2 or 3 every single week since 2004. But also it means we were there. We started this investigative media when Moldova had communist government, communist president, communist parliament. It means nobody from authorities wanted to have an investigative media at that moment.
And you think that changed?
Of course, it changed a lot, but people had following us, reading us, subscribing us for so many years, and they had seen that we are looking critically at the corruption despite all the governments, or better or worse, or it doesn't matter. We look at what happens with public money, what happens with the crime, what happens with human rights, and that the trust increased and increased till today. And actually this year we didn't manage to make any public campaign for subscription because we were so busy with elections and many investigative stories. And I just discovered that quite the same number of people who subscribed last year already, they are already subscribed for the next year. So this is a good...
Last year when we met in Chisinau, you told me that the threats against you personally used to be very strong. You got knives in the mail and stuff like that, told your kids to not open the door. Has that lessened?
Well, it happened some years before because my kids are grown up, but they grew up in permanent stress and permanent threats. And yes, the threats are there. The last year when we published a very strong investigative piece about Moscow involvement in Moldovan elections, we were afraid for the life and security of reporters because they worked undercover for 3 months. And it was quite a strong piece because our reporters managed to show how the political orders are coming directly from Moscow, and also how the money are coming from Moscow. And our reporters received money and tasks from Moscow, and they had shown to the public how all this illicit money came to Moldova in big numbers. And we were of course thinking about the security of reporters, and you never may be sure. And I received a message like, no, you made Putin angry. And you have to understand, when you make Putin angry, it's not an easy
not easy to deal with, yeah.
Yes.
We're going to talk about democracy in both countries soon, and then we're going to talk, I'm planning, of course, obviously, to talk about Russian influence, but I want to ask something that you told me when we were sitting outside, that both of you had been planning or prearranging for the possibility of having to, I have to put it like that, run away. In Moldova, you were thinking of transferring the newsroom to Bucharest or to Romania in case the pro-Russian parties win. You had parliamentary elections this year, presidential elections last year. You are lucky, but even you are at least thinking of the possibility that it might be necessary to help colleagues in other countries. Let me put it that way. Like in Hungary, which is not a secret, is under much pressure. NGOs are under pressure. Free media under pressure. So it's hard to imagine that you are strong, you are famous, you are well known in the whole of Europe, have to think of going into hiding or running away or removing.
Yes, but some strange things happened with our democracies last time. Why I had to prepare my team to be ready for anything? Because they made investigative stories against Russia and Russian influence in Moldova. And the pro-Russian politicians being in the parliament, in the last parliament, they had already written and brought to the parliament the law of a foreign agent. And when I look at that law, it is clear that this law is against everybody in my team, every investigative reporter. And when I look at what happened in Georgia, we were kind of similar. And journalists are arrested there, and they are silenced. So many of them had to leave the country. It is very clear that an investigative reporter and the manager of an investigative media should not sit down and think, okay, we are strong and we'll defeat. I have to think about the security of reporters, specifically in these days when Russia attacks with bombs, with drones, but also with these digital armies. And I am very sorry. I was really very sorry after decades of working as a journalist, because I was born in Moldova and working there and creating this team of investigative reporting, working only there to change and to improve. And I think this generation deserves to live better, and maybe me at the end of my life, I deserve to have a kind of calm life or better democracy. And I was so sorry to make this plan, but I had to make this plan.
Luckily, it worked out differently. Elena, how is the situation in Romania? Probably not that much pressure. Do you get pressure from the government, or do they leave you alone?
Not from the government now, but we were under a lot of threat, especially with the far right. We're not very popular with them. Fortunately for us, Romania is a fairly safe country, but we are, the targets of a lot of smear campaigns. Personally, this kind of people always need a character, right? You cannot just attack NGOs. You need someone, a face. And it so happens that in my team I'm that face, which is, you play a role, you assume that position. I don't know, there are so many things that are being said all across the region, that you are Soros's people, that you are a CIA agent. Now that I'm friends with, that I'm actually a French agent, because there's this conspiracy that involves Macron as being a factor that destabilizes our region, both in Romania and in Moldova. I was a prime minister's girlfriend. What else?
Charming? Charming?
Yes, exactly. I've never met the guy in the same room, but and that was quite new, not a lot of activists get to be a prime minister's girlfriend. What else? And some really other nasty things that are being said. We have a lot of politicians and conspiracy theorists suing us. We win most of these cases, but as you can imagine, it is a form of harassment.
And it's a permanent struggle.
But let me just point that those harassment are a kind of Russian method of intimidating journalists and activists.
Yeah, sure. They focus them especially. Before we get to the Russian disinformation, I would like to look at the last 1 or 2 years in Romania and in Bulgaria. Let me start with Romania, then we'll go to Bulgaria, because there were famous presidential elections last year. You've already all read about that. Calin or Calin? Calin Georgescu, who was nobody like until about 2 weeks before the presidential elections, and then suddenly he skyrocketed in the polls and got through the first round, very successful. That was in November 24, I think, yeah. And then those first elections, the first round of the presidential elections was annulled. Yeah. And in a second attempt, Mr. Dan won it, and Georgescu could not run anymore, sorry. But the far right got in with a big percentage. What happened there?
Well, if you're expecting in this day and age a smoking gun that points directly to what happened, I think you'll be disappointed. Because this kind of a hybrid war that we are being exposed to does not leave the kind of a trail that you would normally see. So there was, and this is my educated guess because I've been working on this, but I cannot point to you exactly this happened and this was the consequence and so on and so forth. There was quite a classical disinformation campaign and manipulation, which had many causes in real problems and real grievances that the society has. So exploiting the pre-existing conditions in the society, raising the profile of such a candidate, especially through TikTok, and using the algorithm in a very nasty way, while claiming that you had zero euros invested in this.
He claimed he didn't have any campaign, any money campaign, yes, and he didn't do anything on TikTok, and in the background, he skyrocketed, exactly.
And it so happened that this managed to fly. One of the reasons for which we are so popular with his supporters is that we initiated a petition to the president, because the Supreme Council for Defending the Country, so the supreme institution in charge with defending with the defense system, issued a press release in which they said that there was foreign interference in our election process, but nobody did anything. So imagine you have a press release in which someone says we were under attack from a foreign country.
Before the elections?
No, this press release was after the first round of the elections. Okay, yeah. And they were saying we identify a very exact number of TikTok accounts and so on and so forth.
Security services, I read, identified 25,000 TikTok,
exactly.
25,000 TikTok influencers, not bots, not tweets, but influencers. 25,000, that's a high number for a country like Romania.
Yeah, and with €0, huh?
Yes. So there is a smoking gun.
Yes, but it's not the smoking gun we usually see in very specific cases. And what happened is that it was us and several other NGOs that asked the President and the Supreme Council to release the data on which they based this information. And the President agreed, they released the data, and our Constitutional Court said, oh my God, it's a problem, let's cancel the elections. So basically, that was like the most severe, mismanagement of electoral integrity we have ever seen, and also of intelligence services actually doing their job. They do all kinds of jobs, not the right kind of job.
So I have a question to both of you. Because obviously everybody watched that in Moldova extensively, because there's the danger of things like that happening in the neighboring country as well. There was a big discussion about that everywhere. Is it right to cancel those elections? Was it an intervention into democracy? Should the Supreme Court have let Cathrin Georgescu run a second time and then have him defeated or have him win because that's life? What do you think, the two of you?
Well, first of all, I think that all of us and each country should look carefully during elections at what happens on digital sphere. Because there was a very strange behavior in the social media bubbles about Cathrin Georgescu, and it was quite the same thing, just with a different result, but almost same. In Moldova, we had one candidate pro-European, which is Maia Sandu, which was known by everybody. And the second candidate was a guy that quite nobody knew. He was the former prosecutor general, but a while ago, he was not a public figure at all. Nobody or a lot of people didn't know him. He was actually not speaking the language of the majority, so...
Where did he come from? What did he want?
Yes, and then he was on the second place, and he almost won on Moldovan territory. He lost because of the vote in diaspora, which is very strange. And it was really strange because he had a few accounts on social media, zero behavior or zero activity there. But during elections, he started to grow on social media.
Same phenomenon.
Yes, we have to take care and to look carefully on what happens. And from now or from last year, from Moldova and Romania experience, the elections will never be the same as we know what elections had been before. No, really, you have not Moldova. Every single country where social media is present, and actually it is present everywhere, we have to look at algorithms. And we see the richest people on the globe today are managers or owners of this social media. It involves a lot of money, and it doesn't bring to people any transparency at all.
That is the reason, one of the reasons why I wanted to invite you, the two of you, not only because I admire your work, but because I think Romania and Moldova are seriously symbolic examples of what is happening with elections. The German government just 2 days ago ordered the Russian ambassador into the chancellery, saying that now they have proof that Russia intervened in the German elections. But in Germany, there is still no awareness. In Romania and Moldova, there is awareness. So I want to ask you the same question. What do you think about the annulment of that elections? Was that the only possibility?
I think that at that point in time, after leaving so many things untackled, it was probably unavoidable. But the problem is that, in my view, we were arrogant. We were very arrogant as a country. And Alina is perfectly right. We were there in Moldova for monitoring the Moldovan elections. We've seen these things, but we said, oh, no, we've seen them. In my country. We thought that it's not going to happen in Romania because we're in the European Union. We are stronger. This could never happen. We were arrogant. I'm going to put it like this. And there's also another thing that I've learned from Moldova this year, not last year, the difference between how to manage properly this kind of an issue. The problem I have with the authorities in Romania is that they canceled the election and nobody went out to explain to the citizens what the heck happened. The president came out for 10 minutes. He said that, some NGOs requested me to release this.
He really was not interested in that anymore. It was his last month in office.
And even the Constitutional Court, they just did a press release and that was that. Imagine that after a week after they were also targeted by Elon Musk, one judge of the Constitutional Court, the president of the Constitutional Court, said, and it's like having a glass of water in which you pour some poison, and what do you do then? Do you try to extract the poison or you go for another glass of water? You go for another glass. Exactly, but that came after people lost trust. because they didn't communicate, and even more than a year after this, we still don't have an official report about what happened. And this is a real problem, and I fully understand those that doubt or build conspiracy theories around it. On the contrary, I was really surprised, again, monitoring the elections in Moldova, their authorities ordered that two parties were cancelled from the competition, with like 2 days before the elections. I was like, oh my God, this will lead to protests and so on and so forth. There were almost no protests. I was really surprised. But why is that? Because their authorities, and before that, Alina Radu's newspaper, actually, they had an investigation about those parties showing that, look, this is what is happening again, these are the links with Moscow and so on and so forth. And then their police went out and said, look, after these investigations, we think that these guys are linked to the Russians.
And they found a lot of money.
Exactly.
So, tell us what happened.
So a proactive approach, and nobody had a problem with that, even in the parts that were...
Because it's not been the first time as well. It happened in 2024.
Yeah, but it was also transparent and explained to the people.
It's been a focus of the political discussion for years and years now.
Yeah.
Actually, since Maya Sandu is in office, right? But
well, actually, we were not pleased about what happens in Moldova too. It could be done better, as always. And actually, when we did the first investigation in 2024, showing to everybody how money are coming from Moscow to Moldovans, and most of the money were coming via in bags from Moscow. And you have to know, if you have any freedom in your country, Moscow will tackle this freedom and will try to misuse your freedom. And at one moment you will start to think, what do I do now? Because this freedom works against us. So we had the freedom as every country to bring into the country, without any specific declaration, 10,000 euros. I will not bring, and you will not bring, because I don't deal with that. And actually, I don't know people who will come with cash. But Moscow decided to use it. So there were people coming from Moscow with bags of cash. According to the law, you can't stop them, because there is the right to bring 10,000 in cash. So the government was looking overwhelmed. They actually knew that the bags of cash are coming, but you respect the freedom of people and let them come with bags of cash. And then those bags of cash were going to everywhere, to villages of Moldova, to bribe people to vote against European Union. We have a referendum also. But also this cash money were going to people to protest against European Union.
Exactly.
So we also had the freedom of protest, which is a beautiful freedom. I love. Moldova was born actually from a protest as a country. We protested in the street to separate from Soviet Union, to have our freedom of speech, to have our Romanian language back. So we were born from protest. It's something that we love. And Moscow started to bribe people to go in the center of the city and to say, we want with Moscow, we don't want with Europe. And then we had seen a lot of titles in European media, in German, in French, in everywhere.
I know, I wrote about that too extensively.
Moldova wants with Moscow. And I remember calling a couple of foreign journalists saying, what is that? What do you do? How do you think? How do you evaluate that Moldova wants with Moscow? Oh, I had seen protests in the street, and I talked to people, they want to go to Moscow. So that was the first moment when we decided to go undercover, to interfere into those protests and to see what happens. And then my colleagues who worked undercover got paid. They were said, you come Sunday on protest, you go together with this group, you take a photo of you together with people around, you come back and you receive money. So our reporters received money, filmed everything. So at that moment, authorities started to think, those protests are fake. Actually, I think they knew.
Well, they knew that was
But
talk
they
of the
had
town
this
for years.
feeling of shame.
Yeah.
We are a pro-European country. How can we stop a protest? They were not thinking to stop a fake protest.
And as a journalist, I can only say that really famous investigative reporting of yours made that obvious. So hadn't it been for,
Yes.
your newspaper, that whole thing could have
After
changed.
we published that story,
Yeah.
it was a huge flood on social media, pushing the government. Police, do something, you see, do something. This is a crime against elections, against democracy, against protest, against everything. And then we had seen how police and authorities started really to work, because it is not against people's freedom to protest. It is to clean our right to protest correctly or rightly, how to say, not to protest when you are paid from Moscow or from anybody else.
So how did, in both of your countries, I mean, these were huge scandals. Although you say it was not explained to your population probably learned in the process more than in Romania. How did that change the way that people look at democracy? Is there, are people tired? Are they walking away? I mean, they vote, what's his name, Simeon from Aur, so an extremist is at what, 30% now? Is that representative of this?
I don't think it's about extremism to that extent. I think it's about an anti-establishment vote, and I think that this is a very important nuance. It might look like a nuance, but it is really important. There is a lot of discontent with traditional politics, and I think it's happening in many places. I think there's a lot of anxiety, especially when you're so close to Ukraine, to Russia, when you're so close, even historically, so not only geographically. My grandfather's parents were sent to Siberia. I've grown with the stories. He didn't see his sister for almost 50 years. She remained in Moldova. He moved to Romania. They were all both old people when they reunited. When you still have these stories in your country, you are, in my view, a bit more afraid and anxious about what can happen, but also, I would say, also more distrustful even in democracy. And why is that? It might seem like a paradox, but it is not. Because I think that there was so much hope, there were so many unmanaged expectations that we will have a revolution and that we will, be a democracy and then join NATO and join European Union and everything will be perfect. There was such a hunger for real change that, unfortunately, got confronted with reality. That you don't actually get, salaries like in Austria all of a sudden. That you don't get public services.
Through that frustration.
Exactly, and you end up with a lot of discontent for democracy because it seems to you that it's not delivering. And then you're also confronted, besides geography and history, you're also confronted with biology, and you no longer have time to wait for your country to change, and that's when you leave it, and that's when you start voting for anything. You say, okay, so this house is wrong, the roof is leaking. You no longer have the patience to solve the roof, you burn the house.
Before I ask Alina the same question, one more question. I mean, in comparison to Moldova, where there is a big part of the population which is pro-Russian, or has been pro-Russian, in Gagauzia and Transnistria anyways, and even in the northern parts, Ilan Shor is promoting that too. But in Romania was never pro-Russian for you.
Not.
And is that changing?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's just becoming...
Okay, that's not a consequence.
This is because Putin and the Kremlin propaganda is more sophisticated than that.
Okay.
He knows that in countries like Romania or in Poland, you cannot go with a pro-Russian campaign because nobody will buy it. Okay. But what will catch up? Maybe an anti-European Union sentiment. And that's why you have mostly campaigns against European Union against the too progressive Western civilization. You have all these movements in which you want, to protect your traditional values. You have if you can imagine that anti-migration sentiment in a country like Romania, where how many Romanians do you have in Austria? Seriously now, I mean, it's so ridiculous. So imagine this. So you have a country from which you have more than a quarter of the population that migrated in the past decades. However, you go and say, stop the migrants. It's this cannot be.
Doesn't really make sense, but it works.
No. So
Thank
this.
you. Alina, how did it change? Or, I mean, democracy is not very stable in Moldova, anyways, because it's young, it's new, it has been risky for a long time now.
Well, what happened in Romania? There was something good and bad. Joining EU was a lot of joy and good things, and Romania became anyway richer, and every single citizen benefited from this. And for us, it was a trauma. We are at the edge of Europe forever. We are here, and the European border is in front of us, and it's in front of us, and we never can, That's why we were never relaxed. We were never feeling that we ended the battle. That's why maybe Moldovans voted a kind of more responsible, or how to say, a bit better, or with more courage for the pro-European candidate.
You want me to say it directly because you're a journalist? They have an amazing president, come on.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's never enough. We want better and better politicians, but yes, at this moment, what happens with pro-Russian vote? It was, of course, not the mistake. I think it was a policy of Russia to keep parts of Moldovans being informed by Russia. Russian information channels were forever very powerful in all the country. Russia puts a lot of money in TV entertainment. Russia puts a lot of money in distributing media everywhere. I think you have some Russian media here. But in a country where we all were forced to study Russian, to speak Russian, and where the culture of watching Russian TV is still there, and where a part of population like Gagauzian or north of Moldova are speaking mainly Russian, you offer them Russian films, Russian entertainment, but then you offer them Russian news, and the Russian news are saying Europe is bad, Russia is beautiful. We have to be united with Russia, Russia is big, And the problem of Moldova, they didn't manage to offer information in the language that people speak at home. If he speaks Russian, you want to get information in your own language.
So there was no counter.
No,
counter
it was
propaganda,
Russian
no counter.
goal
Yeah.
to keep.
I see.
And the Moldovan previous governments were okay. Let them consume information that comes from Russia. At this moment, we are very much divided. Those who speak Russian are informed by Russia and they think the Russian way. Those who speak Romanian are informed by...
It's about 50-50, 60-40, something like that?
If we look at the data, actually, there is less than 20% of Russian.
Oh, okay.
But if you look at the level of the noise, then is 80% of Russian noise, and
Okay.
Okay.
And another question. I mean, there is the accession to the European Union. It's planned. I mean, there the process is running. Is it working? Because I mean, there was a lot of noise about it not working and it being corrupted by pro-Russian sources in the Moldovan government.
Well, we had elections 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
And when you have elections and Russia targets your elections, you really have to work very hard, and then you don't manage to work on development and many other things. We have the war nearby the fourth year. which involves a lot of problems for Moldova. We have still Russian drones falling on Moldova unexpectedly and unwanted, and with difficulties to protect our sky and our territory from. We have a separatist region, we had the energy crisis.
So you're saying there's no time for that? There's not enough energy for that energy?
Yeah, I mean, yes, if I put myself, I never want to be in that government, to have all these problems, poverty, the war nearby, and when you have the war, it means non-business will come to that place to develop something.
Yeah, sure.
The business will run away. So people are running away because now finally it is easier than ever to get anywhere out, because we have a visa-free regime and we may travel to Romania, to Austria, to everywhere. So how do you, just imagine any of you, how do you keep people together when the war is nearby, the drones are falling, poverty is here, economy is not developing, disinformation is coming? How do you keep, and you have the possibility to run away? So, tell me, who will do that? Actually, I think Moldova is doing good.
That's a big sentence.
That's
That's a big sentence for tonight.
With all these difficulties, yes.
Looking at the situation, Moldova is doing good.
Yeah, I mean, there is a slight increase in economical figures, and there is a planned increase, not enough.
And there's a good
but,
president.
yeah.
Okay.
Let's see.
And I'm sorry I'm switching the whole time, but I want to, you know, lead the river together in the end. Romania has another problem that we haven't discussed yet. It's corruption, famous for corruption. And right at the moment, while we're talking, there is demonstrations in Bucharest, not only in Hungary against Orban and his missing childcare, not also in Bulgaria, where the people are protesting against the regime, not only in Georgia, where people are protesting against the regime, but there are current demonstrations in Bucharest, which we don't really look at the moment, against the judicial system, because there was a TV documentary that came out, 2 days ago? 4 days ago, and you were kind of part of the research for that?
Oh, no.
With Recorder doing it?
No, it's an investigative platform. We actually work with a lot of the journalists.
So what's happening there?
Well, basically, this documentary showed in a very good way. It's a 2-hour documentary that has more than 4 million views, which is
4 million.
Yes, and
Romania has how many inhabitants? 48?
No, 20 million.
20, sorry.
Officially,
I thought
19.
I'm sorry.
In theory, 19. In practice, we're all over Europe. But it's an alternative media platform, so it's not a regular newsroom. They're organized as an NGO. And yeah, they did this amazing documentary that was basically based on observing what happened in the judicial system in the past 10 years. If you remember in 2017, when it was really, really cold, a lot of Romanians took the protest because there was this crazy guy that tried to change the law so that he gets rid of his file, his corruption file. And when he noticed that people went out on the streets, he got more technical and basically changed the legislation in the parliament. This is the very short story. The thing is that those changes to the legislation led to the justice system being captured by
That's the current slogan, the captured system.
Exactly. And a lot of corruption cases were actually closed due to statute of limitation, because the legislation was changed, and due to procedural issues, a lot of them simply closed, without. And sometimes we actually had to not only to see the corrupt people getting away with all the money, but also oftentimes needing to perhaps pay them money because they were wrongfully convicted. Because it was like, I won't even describe it because I will not be very diplomatic about it. Anyways, the thing is that this documentary, again, was so well done and so explicit, and it showed up just 3 very courageous magistrates, so judges and prosecutors, that wanted to go out and, you know, blow the whistle. People went crazy. The justice system and the fight against corruption is something very sensitive for the Romanian society. Don't ask me why. You will not see people going out to protest if their pensions or salaries are being cut, if there are many austerity measures, but you will see people going out on the streets and protest if the judiciary or the fight against corruption is affected. I'm very proud of my country because of this. But I think it goes into this feeling of inequality and unfairness. So a lot of people took the streets again, and then we had the second day the most courageous woman, a judge, that went out in this press conference that the bosses from the judiciary were holding, you know, to say that everything is a lie and that there is a conspiracy to undermine the judiciary and so on and so forth. So this lady, a judge, just went out with all the media there, and she took the stage and said, you know, everything that was said by my colleagues in that documentary is true. And if someone says a different thing, they are lying. And imagine saying this with all the media and with all her bosses there. And it was such a powerful moment. I mean, everybody, imagine the media started applauding her because it was crazy, you know, it was basically professional suicide. You never see something like this. She will probably be harassed for the remainder of her life, you know. I mean, she will not be able to work with those people anymore, but she just, you know, went and with a very calm voice, while shivering a bit, you know, she said it plainly. And of course, a lot of people showed it. It was an entire shock because yeah, she basically took over the press.
She was just basically courageous.
She was courageous, and then her bosses went on with the press conferences, but in the middle of the press conference, one of the judges went out and said, Leah is calling me. Leah is the boss of the Supreme Court, and she was calling during the press conference one of the judges to tell her what to say. And they were stupid enough to say this, Leah is calling, I have to go out and see what to say.
This was said in front of all mics.
Exactly. So, and imagine, so you
can tell by the way that she's commenting that they're watching everything.
basically imagine that you have these two things, that besides the documentary, you have this live things happening with no, I mean, people were doing these conspiracies that, you know, it's a setup, and then, but you see them live doing these things. Cool. So everybody went crazy. We have protests every evening. The people are demanding this lady to go from the position of president of the High Court.
And you know what I find so shocking? That in the West we do not even look into that direction. We're
because
so
you would get ideas, huh?
No, because we have our own cliches of the southeastern European region, and that cliche is it's corruption and it's unmendable. And when you look at all the heroes, you know, that I've met during the last years, and the ones that you're talking about, all the, you know, the journalists and the NGO people and the justices and politicians, you know, who step into the way.
In Poland as well, and I think that what people don't understand is that Moldova, in my view, is some sort of a laboratory where some of these things are being tested because it's smaller and because it's so cheap for Russia to test things. Exactly. And then things are being scaled in Romania, and then luckily on some screen next to you, you know.
Yeah. I want to talk about Russia after I asked one last question, general question, and then we're talking about like the details of disinformation for like another 15 minutes. We haven't talked about, you mentioned the war, obviously, but we haven't talked about NATO, about the role of NATO and the role of the war in Ukraine for the internal debate. I mean, I know there's drones falling down, and Romania has been built up into a big NATO fort with that new, NATO base and everything else. But does that change the way that the Moldovans and the Romanians look at Europe as a fortress or as a secure place?
Well, of course, every Moldovan who understands the war when the war started, wanted to go to EU. And there were talks about can NATO protect us, and NATO can't protect us directly because Moldova is not a member of NATO. Moldova is so small and poor and can't have a powerful army to fight with Russia. You can't. Ukraine,
And there's no
which
security guarantees.
no.
Yeah.
Then we started to discuss that kind of 30–40% of Moldovans have a Romanian passport because historically we are Romanians. We got our passports or citizenship back. And we, being part Romanian citizenship, we hope that Romania will protect in a way Romanian citizens wherever they are, and we are in Moldova now. So there is a huge talk, but Russia never sleeps. Russia is always a step ahead. NATO now is the biggest, issue in all this disinformation. EU is the biggest issue in disinformation. So Russia first comes with the disinformation army and occupies a territory with disinformation, and then you'll see people discussing, oh, maybe we should not join NATO. Nobody asks now, today, Moldova to join NATO. But maybe we should not because Russia will be angry, and look, Russia wins the war in Ukraine, and Ukraine didn't get to NATO anyway. So this is the situation now.
But one question before I ask the same thing to Elena. Nico Lange, a very famous security expert, said the other day, Russia is building drone production and training centers in Transnistria, the region that we haven't talked about yet, mobilizing reservists and reactivating weaponry. So they are building up a active force in Transnistria. Is that new? Because I didn't hear about that in that explicit way.
From information we checked, there is no explicit data about this. And happily and luckily, the good thing that happened together with this terrible, horrible war, finally Romania and Moldova, Ukraine and Moldova are on the same plate looking at Transnistrian problem. Because previously, unfortunately, Ukraine was taking the part of Russia in all the Transnistrian talks. Now, Russia can't send actually any army or any weapon or any soldier to Transnistrian region. There are only like two ways, via Ukraine, which is not possible, or via Moldovan airport, or, which is not possible. So since the war started, there are no more Russian soldiers going to Transnistrian region. No new Russian, no new weapons, no new things. Of course, you see these drones are done from very cheap materials lately. So maybe in a basement you may start something, and we have to be sure that not only in Transnistrian basements there might be businesses with drones. They might happen in any basement in the world now with these technologies and possibilities to buy pieces of drones everywhere.
Yeah, I see. So how do people look at NATO in the light of the war and the amassment in the country?
Well, there is still a very strong support for NATO, but there is also a growing and mischievous narrative that says, we are being treated like a colony for a proxy war between the West and Russia. This is a narrative that we see being built quite often. There is also, I don't know, you're probably the same, but whenever I hear from my colleagues in countries that are further away from the border, but we also want peace, I cringe a bit. And let me tell you why, not because I don't want peace, but because for us the narrative of all we want is peace is also a narrative that is very loaded. It is a narrative that is usually going against the Ukrainians for not being, good enough in wanting peace, so that they had to be punished.
They're not ready to compromise.
Exactly. And under this ideal of peace that I think every human being has, as a matter of fact, you have this, let's say, current that builds an opinion that says, let's not upset Russia that much, because when you upset the Russian bear, it's bad. And this is also what the history taught us. And we do have this narrative being built. There's also a lot of disinformation with regards to, we don't have mandatory military service anymore, but there's a lot of disinfo and fake orders for reintroducing military service. There are a lot of disinformations related to right now the disappearance of NATO because of the Trump administration no longer wanting it, and that maybe we should align with our American partners and not try to insist so much on NATO. So these are all narratives that are being built, and there's a pre-existing, and this is true, mistreatment of the Romanian minority in Ukraine. This was something that happened, it's real, but it was boosted a lot during these times, and of course it's being used by the propaganda.
I was just going to ask that, because you already mentioned the common traits of Russian narratives in Moldova and Romania when it comes to like the anti-establishment, the anti-elite thing, the anti-EU thing. But there must be special narratives when it comes to nationalism, to identity, to history, to minorities. So what are those? I mean, they are different.
I think that for us is this, the way in which the Romanian minority is being treated in Ukraine. It's a similar narrative to what we're seeing in Hungary, for example, because they also have a minority.
Topic, yes.
And also people tend to forget that Romania had a similar issue with the Hungarian minority, and we started to solve our issues while joining European Union, we weren't the best of the best when it comes to the way in which you deal with these minorities. And I think that what is also very specific to a country like Romania is this narratives that are building on the historical provinces. For example, the northern part of Romania used to be bigger, and now it's part of Ukraine. And also, this is just history. The Austro-Hungarian Empire was all over the place, and there is this revisionism that goes comfortably.
Only mainly a Hungarian topic. Is that a Romanian topic?
It's a Romanian topic as well. And it's, you go back to history until the year that is serving your purposes best. And that's very dangerous, yes, exactly.
Well, Alina, which are the special narratives of the Russians in Moldova?
Well, I had seen a lot of narratives. I work with narratives. I analyze the narratives. I debunk the narratives, but they manage to surprise me always. They do. And I'll tell you one of the narratives that I was told to our reporter while being paid. Like, you take the money, you go to vote against Europe. Why? Because European Union already prepared the new law for Moldova, where every single child will be forced to have sex in school from being 9 years old.
Oh, that's interesting.
And
people believe that?
I don't know, how can you create that? How can you
that
launch
sounds
that?
Absurd.
And you look into the eyes, you give money, and you say that. Money and fear. That is the Moscow rule. Or, surprisingly, Russia is using the crimes that Russia did in Moldova, now Russia is turning like EU is doing that crime. So, in 1940s, Russia occupied a part of Romania, which is us today, Republic of Moldova. And Moldovans, Romanians living there were sent to Siberia, and their houses were occupied by Russians brought from Russia to that part.
My grandparents.
Yes. And now, you know, one of the narratives is, if European Union comes, Romanian will come and will take our houses. So you are like occupants now.
Going back.
You know, so they don't say that they came and occupied the land and houses and apartments and lives and everything. They say that Romanians and the European Union will come and take our apartments and will take our land and will take everything. So they pay people to say lie, and they pay people to believe the lie. Can you imagine that?
It's hard to imagine because it sounds so stupid, but then what can I say? But I mean, everything you're saying is that people are being bribed to say that, and obviously, and we have, you know, a big social media and media machine. But are there like willful collaborators, people who are convinced of that? Yeah, in both countries. I mean, how are they known? Are they famous? Do they show themselves? Besides Ilan Shor, who is a famous Moldovan oligarch.
Yes, some of them are known. Some of them are real politicians leading some political parties or being.
So they do that openly.
Yes. And they do it, for instance, when we published an powerful investigative story, there are immediately lies about me, paid on social media, posted on sponsored. Actually, one of the lies is that when we publish an investigative story, Alina Radu takes money from corrupt politicians to pay the studies of her daughter at Harvard.
Okay.
So, and you put it on sponsored on Facebook, and it stays there till today. If I publish an investigative story, I don't have money to pay to put it on sponsored. So there will be, you know, a modest maybe number of people who will see that investigative story. But a sponsored post with a big picture of me and with a lot of dollars around me, you know, it will circulate and circulate and circulate. So and what can I do? I opened a few lawsuits against them, but with our judicial system, I have already a year and a half going and going. And how many? If they do it massively, like 20 posts about me a day, fake post about me a day, do I manage to fight with this phenomena?
Or do you just look away?
Yeah, I have to do my job.
Yeah.
And then they see, they understand that it is affected in a way, and they know that if they tell every day to some people that Alina Radu is corrupt, at one moment people will start to believe, some people will start to believe. So this is their way of work. Yes, some of them are open. I opened lawsuits, but I don't know when I end this phenomena with them, because Meta and TikTok and other platforms are benefiting financially from this, so they don't want to stop this phenomenon.
That's another big problem. So how is it in Romania? Who are the
There
collaborators?
a lot of useful idiots. I mean, and I'm not seeing it in a bad way. It's a term from political science, you know.
The socialists are?
No, not necessarily. No, but I'm talking about people. In our case, it's impossible to be pro-Russian overtly. It's impossible.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And not impossible, but no.
Okay.
Maybe.
It's embarrassing.
Yes, and historically speaking, you don't do that. You don't do that because people will walk away. Even Călin Georgescu never said.
Well, he said Putin is a patriot and a hero.
Exactly, but he admired, you know, the manliness of Putin.
The personality of
exactly,
Putin, not Russia.
and not Russia.
Yeah.
It might sound subtle, but it's not.
Yeah.
But of course, you have all these people that are playing into that playbook and somehow serving the same narratives, because oftentimes it is about, truth is boring, and it's much easier to speculate populist messages, especially if there's a bit of attraction as well on this. So you will have sometimes even very smart people that are very opportunistic. Like, for example, right now we've had this political party in the parliament that won quite a lot of seats because it was seen as Călin Georgescu's party. So we had our general elections right after the first round of the presidential ones. So the party that was endorsed by them, that was known by nobody, got a lot of seats in the parliament. All the people that joined that party were opportunistic people, and now their group in parliament is actually dissolved because they went to other parties, I mean, nobody wants. Yeah.
So my last question from here, you can already think of questions that you have, because I invite you to ask yourself, but my last question is the absurdest of all. After this hour, what can be done? I mean, I know you're working hard with investigative journalism, with your NGOs and all the activities, but do you sometimes have the feeling it's useless? Or they're too strong, too powerful? They're coming after you, after us?
No, the lessons for us, the lessons are very clear. We had shown how Moscow is sending money and tasks to people. And actually, for one moment, the money were sent via mobile phone, via an application in the mobile phone. And that application was found in more than 130,000 people. This is huge.
I don't want to say the wrong number again. Moldova officially has about 2 million inhabitants. They're again spread all over Europe.
It was
130,000 telephones with Russian apps where you transfer money from Russia to Moldova. That is a lot of apps.
And the head of the pyramid from Moscow was Ilan Shor, a former oligarch from Moldova who is living now in Moscow, who is friend with Putin. And recently I discovered in an investigation of Romanian and Hungarian colleagues, Ilan Shor moved his crypto business to Hungary.
Did he?
Yes.
I didn't know.
So, and another organization of Ilan Shor named Eurasia, big network of corrupting people, moved to Armenia. Now tell me, please, what is the similarity between Hungary and Armenia?
They're friends with Russia, I would say.
They have elections next year.
So
take into account whoever has election next year, Ilan Shor with his crypto coin, with his Eurasia, with his network of guys who already were trained in Moldova to corrupt elections, will come to you. They are already trained. Sorry. But it happens. They are in Budapest already. They are in Yerevan already.
Okay. What's your answer? What can be done? Obviously not much.
Well, I'm in the business of providing hope. This is what we do as an NGO. So basically for me, the fact that there are still some... do you know for how many nights we've protested? People that have jobs, people that have kids, people that have their lives, people that have good lives, that could use their Sunday evening in-house, enjoying a good glass of wine, taking a good rest or playing with their kids, who are actually outside protesting. For me, that's a reason for hope, because and it's for a very technical and sophisticated topic, and it's not the first time.
Okay.
So if you have people that are usually, and if you have people that are usually working in corporations, I don't know, I have this colleague of mine, he's working for an IT company. He was yesterday in the Victory Square. He has no link whatsoever with these things, but as long as this kind of people are actually willing to invest and see the unfairness of all these things, and as long as they are willing to also bring some other friends with them, then we're fine. But I think we need to do a lot of efforts to explain these things and to make them visible, and not to be arrogant as we were last year and say, it cannot happen as it happened in Moldova, come on. No, I think that unfortunately for us, we are in a new Cold War. I think that's the reality. It's a new Cold War in which you do have a lot of active measures, you do have a lot of propaganda. The problem with democracies and with liberal democracies is that we didn't realize yet that there's nothing worse than being boring, and that we need to reoccupy the space somehow, not necessarily with better lies, but with nicer truths, or with truths that are explained in a more, I know it's unfair, nobody signed up for, being entertaining while preaching for democracy. But I do believe that this is, if we care about this way of life, I think that, and I think that Europe should care about this way of life. I think we need to do better. I don't know. We need to be entertaining. We can do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I talked the other day to Gagli Karacsony, the mayor of Budapest, a liberal politician who's fighting Orban, not personally in the election, but as a mayor. He said, liberal democracy is done with. It won't come back. We have to be good populists now. He's saying the same thing. I'm not sure whether you're...
Interesting.
Yeah, interesting. I'm not sure whether I'm hopeful after this, but thank you for the moment.